to another episode of 3/5 of a podcast. I am one half of the hosting duo. I'm Teddy D. You can find me on Twitter at Teddy_D_, as well as Instagram, Dwight Ted. We are now officially on the Black Astronauts Network. That's right. Anywhere where you are listening to this 5 podcast, just search for Black Astronauts Network. Leave us a 5-star review. And while you're there, please leave a review for the other half of the hosting duo, Mr. Jonathan Lehman. If you don't mind, tell the people where they can reach you, sir.
Yes, sir. It's Jonathan, a.k.a. Grandpa. You can find me on Twitter at Brothers Lehman, or you can hit me up at thebrotherslayman@gmail.com. Or check out our show, The Brothers Lehman, on the Black Is Network. Yes, sir.
Dope. And as always, you can find us on Twitter, and give a quick shout out to our people on there as well. Hashtag Thread Family. Everybody who's on there. We can't name all the shows, but just do a search and you will find us talking all the shenanigans that you can think, especially about the NBA. So, all right, man. So listen, today, as always, we're going to keep it as concise and strong as we can. And this week we were planning to have a couple of guests, and we're going to have more coming up. But that is something that we're excited to do in this next iteration of the show. Have people on, talk about these incredible topics. What we want to focus on today is 2 topics, as always. The first one is a topic that you more than likely have heard. You may have heard one of the synonyms for it. It is a topic called gerrymandering with a G. And that is a complex way of talking about redistricting. So you're asking yourself, what is that? You hear people throw this word around lightly. You don't really have the context of it. Essentially, here's what it is. In America, at least, typically this is what happens. Whether you're in a county or a city or a state, whatever party that is in power, albeit the Democratic or the Republican, it is their responsibility to literally draw the lines of where everyone votes for what district in, for example, the city. Okay. And if you've ever looked on a map and figure out, hey, I want to vote, but I need to figure out what district I'm in. And you look at the map and you wonder, like, why are all the districts in these crazy drawn spaces? Like, why isn't it just like cut into 4 even halves? Well, here's why. Redistricting is legitimately one of the most controversial practices that we do in this country, and that is the party that's in power, Republican or Democrat, decides, hey, here we are, and let's take city, we'll call it the city of Bill, okay? And we're going to be voting from the city of Bill. My party, in this case, we'll say we're the Democrats. The Democratic Party is in power, and I want to stay in power. So in order to do that, I'm going to draw the district lines to favor me and my party. So instead of just having 4 evenly divided sections of the district, I'm going to include, about 30% of the district in the top left, another 20 to the bottom right, about 5 in the center because I know they all mess with me, and maybe like 1 more circle in the lower left. That's going to be District 1. All right. So if you've looked at a space before, the best way to describe it is if you handed a crayon to a group of 20 kindergartners and said, hey, here's a space, maybe about 2 yards big. I want you all to draw 4 lines within those couple of yards. None of them would have the same lines as the other. That's just the
Nope.
reality.
Yep.
Well, the same thing applies for districting and redistricting. So, first off, what are your thoughts on gerrymandering and or redistricting?
Once again, just not shocked. I mean, and you sit here and wonder why people don't trust the government at all. I mean, my good, like, is anything ethical with the government?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, define.
I mean, it's it's like Jesus H Christ. I mean, for me, I guess I'm not as impacted because of where I live in California. So to be honest, when you brought up the topic, I was kind of like,
like, what are you talking about?
I was like, huh? But I could see how in somewhere like, you know, for instance, like where you live in Louisville, how that could probably make a big difference.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
When it comes to the voting.
Well, you know, the ugly side of it is we've touched on it in a past episode when we spoke about identity politics.
Yes.
When they're drawing these lines back to the city of Bill, our imaginary city. Well, my party is in power, and I know that typically Black and Hispanic people vote for me. So I'm going to make sure to include in my district as many brown people as possible so I can make sure that I'm in power. Or I can spread them out and add them in other districts that they may not be included in before I'm drawing my line. Whatever is helping my case, that's what I'm going to do. And before you know it, you're just like, oh, yeah, not only do these lines look crazy and they make no sense at all, but my party's been in power for the last four elections, and I wonder why. So, like, when you hear on a larger scale, of course, states are the big divide here in our country, but think of it like when you hear terms of Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but she did not win the Electoral College. Well, that's because the states that she won, she built up the lead, whether it be California, New York, but ultimately they only count so much towards her election. You know, the other votes are essentially null and void. So that's another way of looking at it. So here's the other question I have for you, right? So if we know that this is an archaic process, that this is something that other countries just don't do. For example, Canada, they've decided to hire a third-party neutral group to decide where the best places to draw their district lines are. So you don't really have to deal with the BS that's involved in this, right? But
yes,
since we're stuck with it because it is beneficial to at least half of the politicians that are running, then what are we supposed to do? I mean, what are we legitimately supposed to do? And I gotta say, there's not a very easy answer. Yeah.
Not at all.
I mean, a lot of it is really like, I mean, you can make some calls. You can probably make a YouTube video about it. You know.
For real. I mean, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
There's only so much we can do. I mean, you tell people just don't vote, but is that really the right thing to do? Because in the end, you tell people not to vote, the person you don't want ends up winning. It's like, God damn it, we should have voted.
Right.
So I mean, it's just it's stuck between a rock and a hard place, bro.
Yeah, man. It is, and ultimately, you want to have the purest of ideals when it comes to something as important as politics, and you know, you want to have the belief of, you know what, if we put ourselves in the same room and figure it out, it'll all be great. Yeah, gerrymandering is one of those things where it's just like, not really though. I mean, not
for real.
Not really. I mean, might get better, sure, but that's gonna be shady.
Might get better, but I mean, you know, history has a way of repeating itself, so I doubt change will happen.
That's it, man. And if you guys want any homework, feel free to get at us on Twitter or Instagram, or you can actually write into the show. As of now, just write into the Why Not Podcast at gmail.com, and that'll go to 3/5 as well. But I would love to know if there's any personal stories that someone has about redistricting and or where they vote, if it's changed over time, and if so, why. I know that this is an issue right now in Virginia where literally they had a tied election, which I had never heard of before in a real election for the state house, right? So the Republican and the Democrat had the same amount of votes. They did a tiebreaker and the Republican won. Well, it was actually important because for this next year, 2018, before the next set of elections, they have a Democratic governor but a Republican-controlled state house. So that one vote can essentially, stand in the way of them expanding Medicaid in the state, which is huge, man. So, all right, that's one. So shout out to Gerrymandering. Now you know. Drop it at a cocktail party. People will be really impressed.
Hell no shout out to Gerrymandering.
That's right. we all hate Jerry, man. So the second topic for tonight is something that I am really intrigued by. Okay. We've established that the two states that we live in, I'm in Kentucky and you're in California, have different state laws and just a voting demographic in general. But one of the things that started as of January 1st in the great state of California is essentially can we call it the light legalization of marijuana? Is that
that actually would be the proper way to say it, because we're not going to call it full blown.
Right.
People right now, you can just walk around the street just blowing it wherever you want. But so we this is a political podcast, but I don't want to step out of bounds. So all I'm gonna say is I had some thoughts to myself about a certain attorney general that we have sitting in office right now with some of his comments, but I'm not going to express that. I don't want to get us in trouble.
No, man, you're fine. Listen, I feel like they're going to come after us regardless. You might as well go out fighting.
There it is. I said it. Right. But the bottom line is, it's not going to make a difference. There's just too, especially in the state where I am in California.
Right.
I can guarantee at least 75% of the state is completely down with the legalization of it. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if the numbers are higher than that, closer to the 80s or 90s. I mean, for years, California was one of the states who looked at everybody like, why isn't this legal?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And now looking at some of the other states like Colorado and Washington, some of these states that have legalized it for a few years now, I mean, their economy's booming. They're able to open more dispensaries, which means jobs. I mean, when you talk about the taxes for the state, for the federal, I mean, they're generating millions. I mean, California alone is expected to generate like $12 billion with them by like 2020. It's stupid. So I mean, the simple and I hate to give this man any type of credit, but even the idiot sitting in the Oval Office basically said, "Let the states do what they want."
Right.
So I mean, what I don't get it. I know some Republicans even now are kind of scratching their head.
Yeah.
Federal laws against it's just like, dude, it's just like, stop, bro, stop.
Yeah, man. And there's so many things that make this an interesting topic. Let me start off with the obvious. Okay, here we are in 2018, the year of our Lord, right? Is Ray and HWAP always says. Here we are, right? And just think back to when we were kids. And if you've ever heard adults speaking of weed, reefer, as they called it back in the day, dope, whatever.
Yeah, dope. That was my favorite one. Who got the dope? Like, dope.
There was always, we were raised with in general viewing it with a negative connotation. And honestly, this is maybe TMI, but I was just never a smoker. But you can't be in this country and not know smokers. So of course, people around me were, but I mean that was fine. It's your choice. But the point being, the reason why I wasn't a smoker is that we were raised with such a negative connotation. Like you can go to jail, you can not get a scholarship, like all this other stuff, right? But like, man, think back to the scandal that it was in '92 when Bill Clinton admitted to smoking weed when he was in college. Like, what? That was a scandal. That was a scandal. Like, really? That's it? Okay, all right, fine.
And now you look. What was it? 20 years later with Obama,
yeah,
he basically said the same thing.
That's it. He's just like,
hey, Obama's cool as a motherfucker.
Barack is my dude, man.
Barack is my boy. So yeah, I mean, I get it, dude. Just within that 20 years, it changed completely from being this thing that people thought was evil and they kind of looked down upon to now it's like, dude, you're finding that it's being used for medical use.
Right.
It helps, with cancer patients. If they don't have appetites, it helps them. It helps them to sleep. Mm-hmm. People take it for pain use.
Anxiety,
other people,
sure.
And I read an article where they're still trying to figure out the benefits to marijuana. And I told a coworker and I were talking about it, and I told him, I'm like, wouldn't it be insane if they found a cure for cancer in marijuana?
Wow. The irony. Think about that.
Think about it.
Think about that, man. The irony. I know it helps with quality of life at the very least, but yeah. What if there was something positive to that? And here's the other side of it, though. I live in a state where right now our budget deficit is one of the top 5 in the nation when it comes to us actually being able to pay out pensions to retired state workers. To put out, essentially. And the number that you just gave, whether it's $12 billion over the last couple of years, it's purely positive, net positive money that you would be getting from legalization of that you can control it, as much as you can, traffic it, whatever, because people are going to do it regardless. We've already established that.
Exactly.
People are
Teddy, I ask you, how strict are the laws in Louisville when it comes to weed?
So that's the other side of this.
You going to jail, like.
Yeah, that's the other side of this. And, once again, like I mentioned before, I don't have any personal, whatever, but if you don't know anyone who's got caught up over weed, like, I don't know what's going on, because maybe you just don't know anybody. So like I essentially I think that we are probably on average about the typical Southern state, and there may be exceptions, but we don't, like, if you get caught with weed, like that can be a misdemeanor depending on how much you have, but essentially it's still a crime. Like there's no independent view of it through the state house that I know of. Now, because we grow tobacco, and that's one of the things that we're famous for, cannabis and hemp, hemp has more so had more advocates because that can help our economy. But like hemp oil is even having trouble being approved because, the whole morality of smoking, right? But the other side of this is, here is the optic that I admittedly have an issue with when I see this on TV. And January 1st, there was a huge line of people that were waiting outside of marijuana. What do they call it?
Dispensaries.
Yeah, dispensaries. There we go. Thank you. But like those dispensaries are typically almost always owned by white people. And then I turn around and I look at the incarceration rate for brown people when it comes to a non-violent issue such as marijuana. And there are brothers and sisters in jail right now serving legitimate time over weed.
And actually, on that note, I have a theory on why Jeff Sessions said what he said.
Oh, why did Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions say what he said?
I think it has to do with exactly what you just said. Do you know how much money the jail system was making off of minorities for these petty crimes? Weed and this and that? Billions. Billions. They don't want to give that up. They don't want to give that up. First of all, number one, let's just call it what it is. Jeff Sessions is an old white man. His views are very skewed. He sees minorities locked up and incarcerated for that. He wants the status quo. It's generating tax money. I don't want to lose that, because in my eyes, if it is legalized, let's say in a few years, in the majority of the states, I feel the whoever is incarcerated for a petty marijuana charge should be pardoned.
I agree.
Which in turn, they would be losing money.
Yeah.
They're not about losing money. True. So that is why I feel Jeff Sessions is so just bent on keeping this just unlegalized and trying to control everything. It's because they know that once it's legalized, I mean, you gotta kind of let them go.
Right.
So
right. And I mean, how much? I guess it's just how much sense does that make? And that's a hell of a point, because Jefferson Beauregard, I called him Jeffrey, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions has proven time and time again that he does not have a true a true heart for doing the right thing, especially when it comes to minority citizens. All right. And the fact, side note, whenever you are going to get confirmed for a position and the widow of Martin Luther King Jr. speaks out against you, what more needs to be said? If Coretta Scott King thinks you're a racist, the
Negro,
wife,
you a racist.
Right, the wife of the most, I honestly, I don't think he was as passive as they paint him out to be, but seemingly the most passive civil rights leader of our life, actually our parents' life as well. That woman says that you are racist, and you know what? I believe her. She's earned that. That's fine.
Absolutely. 100%.
That's fine, man. In closing, man, there's so much to talk about with this topic, but I think we hit on the points that you need to know about the incarceration rate, why it's going to have difficulty passing in certain state houses, the benefit of the government for keeping it illegal. All these things. So before we close in, any other thoughts on either of the topics that we touched on today?
Actually, I'm gonna do a little more research on this gerrymandering, man. It's something that I really wasn't aware of when you brought it up to me. Great info on it, and I definitely want to do some more research, because I mean, like I said, in the state I'm in, I really don't have to worry about it much, but
we like to call that bliss, sir. That's the political bliss that you experience on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, I am blessed. What can I say?
All right, brother. Once more, where can the people find your work on these internet and podcast streets?
You can always find me at Brothers Layman on Twitter. You can hit us up, thebrotherslayman@gmail.com. or you can hit up the show, the Brothers Lehman Sports Happy Hour. You can always find it on the 5's Network or anywhere where you can find podcasts.
All right. And once again, Teddy_D_ on Twitter, as well as Dwight Ted on Instagram. As always, we appreciate you. Please continue to support the Black Is Network as well as the Black Astronauts Network. 5-star reviews are encouraged and appreciated. Right in at the Why Not Podcast. Yeah, that's right. And warranted, sir. That is right. We giving y'all some good work. Right in the Why Not Podcast at gmail.com. And as always, family, now that you wake, what you gonna do? Peace.
Go. Peace.